Meeting to order. Ms. Foche, will you lead us in a prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening grateful for the success we have had so far in this school year. We continue to be blessed with involved parents, dedicated employees, and hardworking students who are committed to the forward movement of our school district. We ask that you continue to bless our decision makers with the wisdom to do good deeds for all children and to approach challenges with open minds and hearts. These things we pray in your name. Amen.
Ms. Dyson, will you lead us in a pledge, please?
Yes. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Ms. Foche.
Mrs. Acevedo? Here. Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mrs. Kraft? Mr. Egan? Mr. Gaines?
Here.
Mrs. Dysart?
Here.
Mr. England?
Here.
Mrs. Lemoyne?
Here.
Mr. Long is ill tonight. He won't be with us. Mr. Smith?
Here.
And Mr. Warner.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Foche. I'd like to take a point of privilege, please. Ms. Kraft, Ms. Carolyn Kraft, on behalf of the board, it's my honor to go ahead and present to you a plaque in the name of, to honor your husband, Mr. Kraft, okay? He's been on this board for over 24 years. He served on here in different capacities as far as committees, and also served as president. He was a true person of public education, and we really appreciate his efforts. But we have a plaque here tonight, and what I'm going to do is read it to you. This is to Dr. Hugh C. Kraft, in tribute to his dedicated service to the children of St. Bernard Parish as a member of the St. Bernard Parish School Board from 1995 to 2018 by the members of the St. Bernard Parish School Board November 13, 2018.
Thank you very much. He enjoyed every night he came, I think.
I tell you, he was like the energized bunny. I tell you, because he never stopped. You know, he was with this board. He was on, like I said, the committees. But he was also with the LSBA, like Ms. Lemoyne. You know, as far as that goes. And he's done a fantastic job. And if someone that's so involved with public education, he was the one. He was number one.
I've had some wonderful stories told about how he had wanted people and improved on people's education by saying, I'm a single parent, I'd like to come to college, but I can't afford to come. He said, come, we'll find something for you to do. And one lady said, I'm a nurse now because he let me come to college and work at registration. So those are the heartwarming things that made his being away from home so worthwhile. And thank you very much.
You're
for
welcome.
this.
It's well deserved, I promise you. Any other board members? Ms. Lemoyne.
Thank you. I know that Mr. England mentions about Dr. Kraft's influence in LSBA, and I just wanted to echo that because we know in St. Bernard Parish, everyone knew Dr. Kraft and knew how much he meant to the students, the teachers, and especially this board. But his influence was really statewide. You know, when he would walk into a policy meeting, a meeting of school board members, everyone knew Dr. Kraft, everyone loved Dr. Kraft, and they knew and trusted that he, like Mr. England said, was a true champion and an advocate for public education. So there's no way to measure how many lives he touched, but thank you for sharing him with us.
Ms. Dysart.
And just one more thing. Dr. Kraft was loved by his students. When I didn't have the good fortune to have him as a teacher, but my sisters did when they were at Chalmette Middle. And when I told them about Dr. Kraft, you know, they just went on and on and on about how wonderful of a teacher he was and a mentor, even at that young age. And he was not loved by his students, but also by the faculties that he worked with. You know, well, I was fortunate enough to be on the board when we had the 13th and 14th grades, and we had many of long nights of meetings when he was the vice chancellor at Nunez Community College before it was called that, and he was always a gentleman, just a true gentleman and a professional, and he definitely was a champion to public education. And Ms. Kraft, I'm sure, you know, you're going to continue to hear those beautiful stories and heartwarming about how much he really cared about kids and people. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Foche.
And I guess just to echo that and hopefully, you know, bring this to some focus, we know his statewide achievements. I mean, they're unparalleled. When you think of all the organizations he belonged to, the people that he mentored that are even from the northern part of the state that when I travel there would say, well, do you know Dr. Kraft? I said, of course I know Dr. Kraft. And they go into the stories of how he has influenced their personal lives as well as their professional lives. The LSBA, we've had a long tradition here in St. Bernard Parish of involvement many years ago in presidencies and officerships with LSBA. In more recent years, Ms. Dysart has been one of the directors, and then Dr. Kraft got Ms. Lemoyne involved in that as well as he took over the presidency as well. And we know about the community college, and I remember teaching there with him, and then actually when I go as far back as when he taught middle school math at Chalmette Middle and then handed them off to us as I taught high school math at Chalmette High School. But I think, Mrs. Kraft, you said it perfectly. When the greatest contributions are those personal, person to person, as you change lives of people, and that has the most, I guess, lasting impact not only on those people but on the community as a whole. Involvement in organizations was wonderful. Making policy at that level is great, but I think we all miss those very personal interactions that actually significantly change people's lives.
I just have to say, he never saw a waiter that he didn't think needed to go back to school.
That's good. That's good.
Always was impressing on men and women, boys and girls. Like, well, I said, sometimes you've got to realize not everyone is, you know, maybe they've reached their level. He said, nobody's ever reached their level. You got to keep
Potential.
working. That's right. Thank all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Kraft. Okay. We'll move on to item number 4, Super News. And who's handling the Super
Well,
News?
actually, Ms. Schneider is not with us tonight. She's out on another assignment.
Okay.
So what we have in your packet is the pertinent information on different things that have been happening, what will come up in filming that you will do in the next couple of months, and announcing the upcoming events. We have the Christmas show at the Chalmette High Cultural Arts Center on December 6th and 7th, and then Christmas at Dockville on the 8th. So this season will be very important. We're asking parents to check on the school's newsletter and websites for the particular holiday events that will center around each of the schools. And with that, I think Mr. Lemoyne and Mr. Jackson will be ready to play our Super News for this evening.
Right.
Before today's Super News, we would like to take this moment to honor Dr. Hugh Kraft, who dedicated his entire life to public education and to the people of our community. One of his greatest recognitions sums up his life when he was honored by the Rotary with the Service Above Self Award. Our lives have forever been changed because of his love, commitment, and service. We are thankful for his many gifts and his legacy of learning. And now from the desk of the Superintendent's Office, It's time for Super News.
Hi, I'm Alex Schneider.
And I'm Barry Lemoyne, and welcome to Araby Elementary for this edition of Super News, the show that shines the spotlight on all the good things going on in our school system.
We'll begin with some bling as we look at all of the fun and tradition that makes up the Chalmette High Ring Day. Nearly 400 seniors recently partook in the long-standing Chalmette High School tradition, which celebrates the contributions, achievements, and leadership of the graduating class of 2019.
Other Owls deserving congratulations are the members of the Fighting Owls Band and Chalmers for making all superior ratings at the LMEA Marching Assessment, the highest score given by the Louisiana Music Educators judges. Congratulations to Jason Rusk, Jill Mitchell, and all of the volunteers for helping these students achieve success.
Chalmette High School also enjoyed its 71st annual homecoming festivities, which featured a big football win and the presentation of the homecoming court. Students also enjoyed a dance the following evening, creating positive and memorable experiences for all of the CHS students who participated. School pride and enthusiasm continue to be a hallmark of our high school, and it's great to see these traditions flourish.
And now let's take a trip to the Araby Alligator Newsroom to see all the good things happening here.
Hello everyone, and greetings from Araby. I'm Cliff England, President of St. Bernard Parish School Board, and it's my pleasure to introduce some of the members of the Araby Elementary School family, as these super alligators will now share their super news.
Hi, I'm Alex.
And I'm Jelly, and welcome to Araby Elementary School for our Super News segment. We'll get things started with a sweet look at our Araby Chorus and our Araby Angels as they kicked off all the fun this year at Sugar Fest. The national anthem and the fest favorite, Sugar Sugar, were sung by our chorus, while I'm in Love with the Monster got the crowd clapping along with our dance team. These angels also headlined our weekly Monday morning assemblies and performed at our annual McDonald's night and the Boo on the Bayou at the Islanos complex.
And now we'll go from sugar to stars as we see some of our 5th graders who took part in Starbase, the Department of Defense's STEM program at Jackson Barracks. There, it's all hands-on, mind-on, all of the time with fun and engaging experiences and activities. From Newton's laws to math and measurements, there is something for everyone. The program also stresses teamwork as students have to work together to explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate concepts.
In celebration of the end of the year ELA unit on mythology, our 2nd graders sure enjoyed the Greek Fest. Students played parts of Greek gods or goddesses, Spartan soldiers, ancient Greek philosophers, and even Greek royalty. They enjoyed mastering the labyrinth, Olympic foot races, Apollo's dance party, and feasting on grapes in our philosopher's symposium.
Students have also been busy in our science lab this year, a designated place where our Araby alligators sharpen their skills. In the lab, students experience a variety of hands-on activities that relate to real life as well as their science curriculum.
Thanks to Miss Sarah Stevens, our music teacher, our school received a $3,500 Jazz and Heritage Grant, which brought a West African drum and dance company to our school. The drum and dance groups performed during cultural arts, and later in the year, an opera creole will perform for us.
I tell you, you can't beat a good drum, or maybe you can. And speaking of music, some of our younger students took a trip to the Chalmette High Theater to enjoy the Early Explorers concert presented by the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra. Students were introduced to a variety of musical instruments and were able to meet the musicians and ask questions. Later, they were treated to a 30-minute concert that reinforces learning about numbers with a performance titled The Orchestra Counts.
We sure do love our parents at Araby Elementary. At our recent Career Day, parents and family members joined our classes to talk about jobs and the impact of those in our community. We had guests representing all kinds of jobs: military, nutrition, nursing, construction, and law. One visitor even showed us how to become a comedian.
Maybe those people at Penn TV could learn something about comedy from him, huh? Our time is almost up, but before we go, we are going to take a quick look at something called Reading Around the World, where books are given to our younger students by the members of the Kiwanis Club. Better still, guest readers from the ARC and the club join our 5th graders in reading to our preschool students. It's a great way to share a love of literature.
Well, that's all for now. Thanks for tuning in. And before we go, happy birthday, Alex.
Thanks.
And from Araby, these alligators will see you later.
Bye.
Great job, and thank you so much for that super look at all the good things going on in your school. All of us on the school board are proud to be part of this super team that brings you all of the super news. We'll see you all next time on School Spotlight.
Thanks, Mr. England. Teaching kids to make good choices is at the heart of much of what we do, and that is really apparent each year during Red Ribbon Week. This year's Red Ribbon Week centered around the theme, Life is Your Journey, Travel Drug-Free, and in a series of events educated our students on the dangers of addiction and the benefits of living a healthy, drug-free life. This idea was chillingly brought to life in the recent mock crash held for our middle and high school students at St. Bernard Middle School. And while we're here at St. Bernard Middle School, let's meet its Super News team.
Hi, I'm Diana Dysart, School Board member of District 7, and I'm happy to be here to introduce the team at St. Bernard Middle School who will share their super news with us as part of today's School Spotlight.
Hello, I'm Eliza.
And I'm Denham, and welcome to St. Bernard Middle School, the home of the Eagles.
And welcome to today's Super News segment. We'll get things started with some information about our SSR program. SSR stands for Silent Sustained Reading, and in each day in homeroom, students are given 10 minutes to read books of our own choosing, which instills a love of reading in us and helps us to score higher in comprehension, vocabulary, and spelling.
And speaking of scoring, we are also given time each week to take our accelerating reading test during a study hall period. These opportunities promote a positive attitude towards reading at our school as more students are reading books for pleasure and more students are finishing them. Since we began SSR, the amount of reading at our school as seen by the AR tests has more than tripled.
There are also school-wide literary contests and friendly reading competitions with prizes being awarded for the winning class. Hey Denham, yesterday a book fell and hit me in the head.
Well, you only have yourself to blame. Besides increased reading skills, this year our school has also stressed more community outreach as a way to build relationships and improve academic achievements for all of us.
Earlier this year, we hosted 2 events to bring families onto our campus. Moms and Muffins, and Dad and Donuts. Nearly 300 moms, dads, and guardians visited our school and spent time with us. These gatherings are strictly social, chances for parents to mix and mingle with other families and spend quality time at St. Bernard Middle for some positive interaction.
And not to be left out, our grandparents recently received their VIP invitation to visit us at St. Bernard for its own get-together. It's called Grandparents and Grits.
I guess it's like they say, to succeed in anything, you have to have grits and determination.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that joke. You know, how many grits? Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you next time for some more super news from St. Bernard Middle School. Bye!
Thank you so much for that great report. We appreciate all of our teachers, students, and parents who really show us that the Eagles at St. Bernard Middle are really reaching new heights. And now back to Alex and Barry.
In other super news, 12 outstanding teachers of the year were selected throughout our district to compete at the district level. These teachers represent the best of St. Bernard and are inspirational, dedicated, and effective. We are excited to announce Erin Johnston, Sharon Landry, and Chris Deere have been named as our district-wide Teachers of the Year. And on next month's Super News, we'll get to know each of these amazing teachers on our special Teacher of the Year edition of Super News.
Also receiving accolades recently were two of our own leaders, Special Education Supervisor Jeremy Kurth and School Board Member Catherine Lemoyne, who were recently recognized by the BPW as model working women for their outstanding contributions to the field of education and for their work in the community.
And finally, as the holiday season is quickly approaching, we want to share a friendly reminder to our families there will be no school the week of Thanksgiving, November 19th through the 23rd, and the Christmas holidays begin December 23rd, and our students will return on January 7th, 2019.
And if you are looking for some holiday fun, Christmas at Dockville is scheduled for December 8th, and the planetarium will be featuring a special performance of the Nutcracker Suite on December 14th, 15th, and 19th. Check out our website for more information.
That reminds me. Hey Barry, why was Santa's helper so sad?
I don't know, why was Santa's helper so sad?
Because he had low self-esteem.
You know, Alex, maybe that kid from Araby was on to something. Anyway, that's all the time we have for this edition of Super News.
And don't forget, November 14th is the next alumni general meeting for our CHS alumni. Hope to see you all there, and we'll see you all here next time on Super News, where we always let
the Super News roll. We'll see you next time.
Mr. Fernandez?
No, John.
Oh, he couldn't hear. Oh, okay.
Okay. In your package, you have our comprehensive annual financial report for 2017-2018. Our audit has been complete, and the auditors have issued their opinions. So we have our friend Mickey Simon from Report here to give his report. So I'd like to call him up.
Okay.
That's okay.
I'm glad to have you here this evening, sir.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
First off, I'd like to just start with by expressing gratitude and appreciation to the board for the opportunity to serve St. Bernard Parish School Board, and also gratitude to Mr. Fernandez and his staff for all of their hard work and providing for a smooth audit throughout the whole experience. So just wanted to say that. So we'll go ahead and dive right in. I'll start you off with the opinion on the financial statements, which is on page 1. It's a few pages in, but since I'm not reading it to you per se, I'll let you kind of find it as I'm going here. So the audit opinion on the financial statements talks about management's responsibility being for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements as you see them. Our responsibility as auditors is to formulate an opinion or opinions on those financial statements. On page 2, you see a section entitled Opinions, and that's where we state that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material specs in conformity with what you would call GAAP, or generally accepted accounting principles. This is also commonly referred to as a clean opinion, right? Or we would also say unmodified. So it's a good opinion. Next, in this opinion, we talk about something that's called required supplementary information. That's the section called Management Discussion and Analysis, and then some of the schedules a little bit later on behind the notes to the financials. This states that essentially there is no opinion on this actually, and that's the required way to say it. That's the required way to do it. So it is as expected. And also the other supplementary information states that it is, or our opinion on it states that the information is fairly stated in relation to the financial statements as a whole. So everything was as expected again as what you would call a clean opinion there. So I'll take you through just a few elements of the financial statements really quickly. We can start on page 26. Give you a second to flip to that. Okay, so this is the governmental funds balance sheet. We'll really just kind of stick with the general fund as we traditionally do, just because it's the main operating fund of the school board. So here we see that Total assets are around $30.5 million. This is a decrease of around $2.5 million. You'll see that it's primarily made up of cash and the interfund receivables from other funds. Your liabilities are about $10.3 million, which is a decrease of about 4.4 from the prior year. This leads to a total fund balance of around $20.3 million, which increased from the prior year by about $1.9 million. This fund balance is one of the measures that we normally like to do over the fund balance is take the unassigned piece, that's the bottom number right before total fund balance is $12.5 million. And we determine how many days of general fund operating expenses are in that number, how many days or sort of in those unassigned reserves, if you will. And so this year we calculated that out to be about 69 days, which is an increase from the prior year of 60 days. So all this points really to a healthy fund balance, and that benchmark of 60 days being a true indicator of a healthy sort of working balance there. So just kind of wanted to point that out. Next we'll go to the general fund statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. That's on page 30. Again, focusing on the general fund, we see revenues of $73.1 million, which is about $3.9 million higher than last year. We see total expenditures of $68.2 million, which is also an increase, so everything got bigger this year, by $3.1 million. And then with other financing uses of $3 million, and that leads to a sort of bottom line change in fund balance of $1.9 million, which correlates back to that general fund balance sheet that we discussed just a second ago. So again, in the general fund, looking very healthy there. I just kind of want to take you now to, these are the fund financial statements, but I want to take you now to the government-wide, which is a little bit different measure. These are on a modified accrual basis, which is, I guess, closer to cash than full accrual, but it's not, fully cash. But the government-wide statements, let's go to page 22. These statements are issued or reported as if the school board were a business, a true for-profit business. And so things like all the capital assets are on these financials, any debt, if there were any. Right, Ms. Bochet, all that's paid off now.
Right, yes.
Long-term bonds, and everyone's happy about that.
Oh, definitely.
So all that is on these statements. And so here really just wanted to highlight the biggest change, not really go over the numbers per se. So the biggest change is this year in the governmental accounting world, what happened is called GASB 75. It's just a new pronouncement that changed the measure of one of the liabilities on this government-wide statement of net position. What that relates to is a liability that goes back to your other post-employment benefits obligation. And so you might remember in 2015 we talked about a new liability on these statements related to pensions and how we have, not we, but through the pension plans, they're now asking you to record that pension liability for future payments, so on and so forth. Well, this is similar, but it relates to retiree health and life benefits. And so previously, you recorded something called a net OPEB obligation. However, that measurement has changed due to certain, the accounting rules. And so now it's a net OPEB liability, OPEB being other post-employment benefits. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what really happened was your liability in that regard went from $10 million to about $80 is really what happened. And so the actuary that the finance department hired just determined that new liability, if you would, at the beginning of the year and the end of the year. And so that new liability, or I guess remeasurement of it, led to what's called a change in accounting principles. So if you look at page 23, at the very bottom, 23 starts out with the expenses at the top and then your revenues. And then down at the bottom it says net position at beginning of year, and then a change in accounting principles. So it's basically restating that beginning net position for the implementation of this new accounting standard. And so you'll see that there was an adjustment to the beginning there of $70 million. It's really just a function of a new accounting standard coming through that is making you guys sort of remeasure that in a different way. Okay. So that's really what I wanted to highlight. And the details of this, the footnote, there's always been a footnote on this. It's footnote 6. If you were interested, you could look at page 75. I don't really want to highlight too much with that because not a lot changed with it, just the structure of that footnote, but it talks about a lot of the same elements. about the future, what are the benefit terms and things like that of the plan and what those future obligations are. And so just if you had an interest in that, you could turn to that footnote on page 75. So that sort of does it for the financial statements overall. That's sort of the general highlights of what we've hit there. So I guess I would take you to now the other elements that are important in a governmental type audit, or for an audit of a local government. And that would be some other opinions that we have related to government auditing standards. So I would say to go ahead and turn to page 194. Spent a lot of time in the front, now we'll go to the back. So this is a required report that we needed to issue, and it talks about your internal control over financial reporting. Yeah. This is if we had any major issues with the controls in place that we would be reporting them. We don't have anything to report. We didn't find anything that would classify as a material weakness or a significant deficiency or anything of that sort. Also, you see there's a paragraph in here on compliance. We did not note any non-compliance as we were doing our testing. So that is reported in here as well. So also this is, as you would informally call, clean. I have yet another opinion. After all those puns on the video, I'm finding it hard to resist the pun myself about how opinionated we auditors are. I'm really trying. All right. So this is another opinion that we're required to issue, and it really relates to the federal dollars. It's an opinion with relation to uniform guidance, which is the rules that surround that federal money. Okay, so this one has a few elements as well. It's got the compliance on federal programs specifically. Again, no non-compliance noted there. It's an opinion on each major program, and the major program just means that among all the federal programs, we are required to select a few to test in depth. And that's the major program. And so this year that was Title I, Title II, and the Special Education Cluster. There were no question costs in any of those programs. Again, clean. Also, this report talks about the internal control over compliance. No issues there either. No material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the internal control over compliance. So again, clean. And then finally, there's an opinion on the actual schedule of federal dollars that we're talking about here. And that was an unmodified opinion or clean opinion as well. That schedule is actually, I would point that out to you on pages 200 and 201. So it's just one flip away from seeing all the federal dollars that your school board, that you guys are entrusted with, and the finance and accounting department is handling in such a great manner that didn't lead to any issues with the audit. So those are quite substantial dollars there that I would kind of point out. Okay, if you flip again, there's a little section that sort of summarizes everything I said. It's on page 203, and that's the summary of auditors' results. I've really said everything that's in it already, so I don't have to rehash it. But all that's in there. As a summary, and then on page 204 is if we had findings on any of these issues that I've just talked about, they would be on page 204, but as you can see, it says none. Okay, so that's sort of the the crescendo there to all these opinions that I've been talking about. However, I'll have one more, at least while you have this book open. The Board of Elementary and Secondary Education is requiring all school boards, as it has for several years, to put these schedules out. They ask us to perform certain procedures over those schedules just to make sure that they're accurate. Our opinion is, still flipping to the back here. Let me see, I'm sorry, let me get the page number. It's 206. Okay, so this is our independent accountant's report on applying the agreed upon procedures that we've been asked to do. And if you just kind of go through each schedule, you'll see at the end the results say that there were no differences noted. So when we tested those details, we didn't note any differences, if that makes sense. Okay. So next I'd like to shift gears a little bit and just go into something what's called the required communication to those charged with governance. It's just a letter that we issue every year, and we're required to communicate this to you at the end of the audit. The different elements are as follows. Well, one, I've already mentioned the change in accounting principle with GASB 75. Next, it would be talking about certain estimates. So the biggest estimates in these financial statements are you don't have a copy of this. I see some of you flipping. You don't. This is just a letter that that we provide at the end, but I'm just sort of covering the highlights of it. So again, accounting estimates. The biggest estimates in these financial statements are the pension liability that I discussed and the other post-employment benefits liability, with the size of those, and they employ estimates in the meaning of they use actuaries to calculate those out. All right, also there were no sensitive disclosures affecting the financial statements. Other elements that we're required to report on, we encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management in performing or completing our audit. Any misstatements identified, there was really only one entry that came out of it, so really not much to report there. And then there were no uncorrected misstatements, so nothing that we identified that wasn't corrected by management. We're pleased to report that there were no disagreements with management that arose during the course of the audit. And then to our knowledge, there were no consultations with other accountants. Again, that would be something that we're just required to tell you. It would be sort of like opinion shopping if they, sort of didn't agree with something we were saying. Okay. All right, so lastly, I guess I would like to just sort of go over, and again, this isn't in the packet that you have, but the Louisiana Legislative Auditor issued these yet another set of agreed upon procedures that they are sort of mandating that go alongside the audit. If anything significant came from these procedures, and they spell out the procedures very specifically, they tell us exactly what we have to do with those, so there's not a lot of leeway with it. But what I was saying is if there was anything significant that came from it, then that would be carried over to the audit as a finding, which you've already seen. There were no findings in the audit. So with these procedures, though, just kind of wanted to cover a few of the smaller items. Again, just nothing that rose to that level of being an audit finding, but we're required to just kind of report. A few exceptions. They had us look at bank reconciliations, so we tested 5. With one, there was no evidence that they were prepared within 2 months, which is, again, that stipulation that they were saying. And with 3, that there was no evidence that outstanding items greater than 12 months were researched. So when we say no evidence, that just means, it doesn't mean it didn't happen, it just means that there was no evidence for us to see with regard to that. Deposits into the bank accounts. We looked at 10. For 2, we determined that the deposits were not made within 1 day of receipt. And then for 3, we could not determine when the check was received, and that's very common, just that, maybe sometimes that's not recorded. And so we could not test those 3 items, which is okay. The 2 credit or fuel card statements tested, for both of those, there was no evidence of review on the statements. Again, doesn't mean the review doesn't happen, it just means that according to the very specific procedures they had us do, there was no evidence of that. So again, nothing of that sort, as I mentioned earlier, was rising to the level where we'd have to report it in the audit. So at this point, that kind of wraps up what I was needing to present to you guys. So I'll ask if there are any questions.
Right. Well, this is fantastic. Report from you.
Thank you.
But it's a testament to Mr. Fernandez's department, because it's not a very large department. So, they do a fantastic job.
Yes,
and for a public entity like we have right now, to be debt-free and to have this type of audit is almost unheard of in for public entities. So, any questions from board members? Ms. Fulcher?
Just to make a statement, like I do. Did Mr. Warner have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Warner.
Comment. Why don't you comment first?
I just wanted to follow up on the post-employment health care and life insurance.
Yes,
I mean, that can't help that. And great job on the audit, by the way. It's, no opinions is best opinion, right?
Right.
So, this change in accounting, where did that come from? Is that a...
So that's the rulemaking body for governmental accounting is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB, and so their pronouncements are numbered, 1 through, I can't even keep track what the latest one is now, but 75, sorry.
It's in the 80s.
It's in the 80s, but 75 took effect for the year ended June 30, 2018. So you guys were really the first ones to incorporate this, and so Mr. David was right on top of that. Part of the process is to hire an actuary to calculate out that liability that we talked about. It takes a lot of really smart people to figure that one out, because actuarial science, as you know, is so that had to be incorporated for 6/30/18, and so that's sort of how that came about. But again, it's really a different measurement that they're looking at. It's a longer term, if you would, just to I guess sort of say it in 10 seconds or less, it would be to sort of look at the present value of all those future payments, whereas before it was a different measurement, and so that's why it's much bigger now. And so some of these, the pension and this one, are just obligations that I think, honestly, I'll share what I think, where it's coming from is bondholders, the bond market, wanting to look at municipal bonds. They want to know all the obligations that are out there for local governments that are issuing these bonds. So I think that's where it stems from. That's where that requirement is starting to come from. But it is the rulemaking body that established that specifically.
And you just look at that number. I mean, $70 million. That kind of jumps off the page at you, So,
right.
And I know it's an actuarial number. It's
yes, sir.
It's just out there in the future, but
yes, sir.
How do we know? When do we determine if this is something we should be concerned with, or in the future, is it something we have to be concerned with?
Just to comment on that, it looks like a big number when you see it, $70 million, $80 million. But you got to remember, this is liability that's going to be paid out over the next 30 or more years. This is a liability for all of our employees, some of whom may not retire for 30 years or 25 years. And the current portions of these liabilities are already incorporated into our budget. So it's not anything that's going to come and hit us all at one time. So when you think of it as a long term, it's just recognizing what we're going to pay out over the next 30 years. We're not going to have to pay it out now. We're not going to have to pay it out next year. We're going to pay it out over the next 30 years. And it's already incorporated into our current budget. So it's nothing that's going to be a surprise, or it's just something.
It's like all future retirement benefits that somebody would earn. That's paid out,
Correct.
say, by the retirement system. And during the course of every year, we're paying our contribution into the retirement system.
And it'll be funded by those future revenues, those future
Right.
tax revenues, those future MFP. So it's not like we're expected to have $160 million in the bank to cover those future expenditures.
Yeah, I understand it. It's just wanted to look.
It just
further
looks scary
explanation.
when you look at it on paper.
Well, from a
Thank
layman's point of view, it seems a little ridiculous. And it does to most of the practitioners out there. Now, to the governing body and the rulemaking body of of GASB, it's I guess, the course of doing business. So what you're going to see is all governmental entities that have those long-term future obligations having to report that in their financial statements. And as Mr. Simon said, beginning after June of 2018. So you're going to be seeing them hitting all school systems and governmental bodies from this point forward with those changes in position and ASAPs.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Any other board members before Mr. Lachey?
And just like as usual, I think some of y'all alluded to them, we have a very small department. David Fernandez runs it. We have to manage an entity of this size, does a phenomenal job with the people that he does have. And just a reminder, over the past 13 or 14 years since Katrina, the amount of federal funds that has passed through this school system is unheard of. And we have not hired additional staff to deal with that. So he has been really in the forefront of managing these hundreds of millions of dollars that have passed through the school system, and we've never had a question cost, we've never had a finding, not even an adjustment, not even suggestions for improvement on internal controls. So he's done a phenomenal job with this, and as Stenglin alluded to earlier, you rarely see this consistently and in this magnitude for governmental bodies especially. So kudos to David and his staff of people and all the people out there in the school systems who don't know why we have to do it this way, but are helping and trying to comply with all of the rules and regulations we put on there, even as Mr. Simon alluded to, where you might have a school or whatever not deposit today, they deposit tomorrow instead of today, and then we have to get on them about those kinds of little things. But for the most part, our people are very, very diligent, and because of Mr. Fernandez's leadership in this endeavor, really are working very hard to comply with everything, and it shows then in the outcome when we have a night like this. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Oche, and he had a good teacher, right? And because I tell you, it's a business. The school system is a business. You know, it's not only just educational-wise, academics. It is a business, and it's a major business. So, and Mr. Fernandez, congratulations again. And Mr. Simon, thank you, sir, for that report. Anybody else?
Thank you. I
Okay.
did have some good teachers, and Dr. Kraft was one of my first math teachers.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Dave. Move on to item number 6, update on the cultural arts activities. Mr. Charles Gassar, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. England, and happy holidays, everybody. Here it is.
Absolutely.
Here it is.
We haven't even gone through Thanksgiving.
It's here. It's all upon us now. It is here. Some background before we start in the actual activities that are taking place, some things that have either occurred or that are occurring. As Super News pointed out, the LPO came, and the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra comes to our community and performs at our Cultural Arts Building twice a year. And it's so easy to take for granted and not understand the magnitude of one of the finest musical organizations in the state of Louisiana coming to our school district directly to perform for our students. We're not busing our kids to the Mahalia Jackson or busing our kids to this center or that center. They come to us. And we really need to take advantage and appreciate the magnitude of truly some of the finest musicians and the impact of those people upon our young students to our older students. So we're very fortunate to have that experience. They come in the fall and then in January, twice a year. Additionally, I think Chalmette High School has some pretty exciting things that have occurred that have put the school and their students and programs in a wonderful position. Mr. Jason Rusk with Chalmette High School, his effort in pushing the band to a superior place in the LMEA marching competition. The judges are trying to find what's wrong with what you do, not celebrate what you do right. That's a very hard thing to understand with kids. Most people are, oh, aren't you wonderful? They're looking for, what are you doing that's not right? And to reach that point of a superior rating is an exhausting journey. And he and his crew certainly deserve all the kudos possible in getting to that place. Yes, indeed. Additionally, CHS Voices, once again, was involved in the wood competition. And ladies and gentlemen, that is a whole different league of what our community and most school communities are accustomed to. People that are in high school beginning to sing pre-operatic music and art song level music in a very intimidating environment is not an easy journey. And once again, the CHS Voices were able to place a very large number of students into that competition. And even one student made it to the second round, which was certainly very notable. Additionally, with CHS Band, student placing in the state honor band is an incredible competition, an incredible accomplishment, because you're looking at students from across the entire state of Louisiana. And those students truly compete very intensely for those positions. So again, tremendous kudos. Bringing it all back now to our in-service on Tuesday, our elementary music teachers were able to bring home to their classrooms a class set, the start of band instruments for our 5th graders to begin that arduous and difficult journey of learning to play an instrument. We forget, you look at a kid playing a clarinet or a trumpet and you go, well, that's pretty wonderful. It is a multi-year journey to get a student both muscularly, intelligently, and artistically to make music take place. So this is a tremendous start, I think, to put us in the league of those schools who normally excel in instrumental music. So tremendous, tremendous accomplishment. I think, speaking for all of those people, Tuesday felt like Christmas, you guys. It really did. They were extremely excited. And on their behalf, I'd like to say thank you to all of you, Ms. Voce, and the board in that journey. And we worked on putting together the bid, which will be going out probably right after Christmas, to be able to place into our elementary schools that starter cadre of instruments, so that kids who realize, this is me, or I'd like to at least try to see if this is me, to get them to that point. Additionally, tomorrow I will be meeting with a member from the Jazz and Heritage Foundation to look at the possibility of them funding and at least assisting us in funding our Instrumental Music Academy, which we started 2 years ago, so that our elementary kids on Saturdays will have opportunity for real intense instruction to push them and move them forward. So, if you go through your pages, ladies and gentlemen, this is pretty, I think, pretty straightforward. And I'd like to thank Miss Jeannie Lannis for her incredible work in helping me get all of this information together for you. The first page in your packet, this page, is a listing of school performances. It gives you the date, it gives you the school and the place. And on our elementary level, there are those schools that have their Christmas performances at their own school site, and there are some that choose to do whatever they're going to do musically at the Chalmette Cultural Arts Center. So this lays out for you the schools, the date, and the times, and where they will take place. And schools, and certainly the students and families, always appreciate the visit of a board member to their event. We'd love to have you guys there. The next piece in the packet is a very large email that has begun. That's this piece. Okay? And this email will take you through all things Christmas at this point. If there's a performance, this is going to list it. There's details here. First, the very first piece that will take place is Christmas at the Complex, which is Friday, November 30th. There is, in your packet, this piece, and it gives you the tentative listing of which schools are performing when at the complex. There's a tree lighting there, and certainly we need to commend parish government for their desire to celebrate our young people, realizing every time young people perform, they learn to do it better. And it is an opportunity. It can be very difficult. For our teachers who do this, ladies and gentlemen, it is an enormous amount of work. Communicating to parents, dealing with kids, costuming them, rehearsing them. But again, it's all in the preparation, in ultimately culminating the talent and the ability and the opportunity all in one place. Miss Melissa O'Neill at Parish Government is the person that is helping to coordinate those activities with our office here. And what I've done this year is try to place one major communication device, an email that can move backwards and forwards between people with areas of interest or concern, and what about, and who's doing what. The very next activity that will take place is the Los Isleños Bonfire Celebration, which will take place on Saturday, December 1st. It will begin at 3:30, and any of you who have ever had the opportunity to attend, it's small town Christmas. There's such charm about that event. People who attend it, I think, truly enjoy it. It culminates with a wonderful bonfire, singing of Christmas carols, and students getting to ride on a big tractor trailer with hay, and there's a hay ride, and it's a wonderful, wonderful evening. Then the next wonderful, horrendous, gigantic big event to take place is Chalmette High School's Christmas Variety Show. Tickets become, isn't it interesting, the very first thing to tell you is tickets are available November 20th because these tickets sell out usually in 3 days. They really move very, very quickly. And Brianna Acosta and Ariana Casar were able to put together the first of kind of media pieces that are going out, and you have one of those in your packet showing that Chalmette's Christmas show. It will be a wonderful celebration of band and chorus, ambassadors, charmers, just so many wonderful kids showing their incredible talents. And that will be on Thursday and Friday. Then immediately following that on Saturday will be the Dockville Children's Christmas Festival. And there's much communication going on within the school system among middle schools, elementary schools. First of all, if you guys might remember last year, because of the incredible weather, one of our biggest efforts had to be canceled, and it was really tragic. And to Miss Rita and Chris and Bill and Floyd's credit, they invested a tremendous amount of money into the performance barn for this year so that we won't be in that situation again. There's tremendous infrastructure. The parish came through and moved the drainage in the ditch that parallels the property, because they were dealing with that for years. That's been fixed. They've placed parking for 1,000 cars now. Isn't that amazing? 1,000 cars. The performance barn is now air conditioned and heated, so that even if the weather is tremendously inclement, the program can still go forward. So they truly stood up for us, realizing just how important training young people to perform and giving them opportunity, how important it is that they've made that really a priority, and we're really excited about that. So to that, you guys, the art teachers are working to place Christmas trees and artwork in place, because this is a multi-artistic experience. There's the trees, there's the art, there's the song and dance, and we're asking you guys at the bottom of your email, school board members will come and choose the 3 pieces of art to represent the St. Bernard Parish board between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. on Saturday morning, December 8th. And Mr. England, if you can coordinate with board members to see who will be there. What happens is we have to choose one elementary, one
Right.
middle, and one high school piece, and it's sent on to represent the district.
Good.
So we're really looking forward to you guys being there, and I can promise you, you'll have a good time with us. And then the upstairs this year, the art teachers are planning on the second floor of the observatory building to do crafts with the kids from 10 until 4 p.m. And it's a multi-part experience. It's one, to give kids a chance to have fun doing art, but it's really an enriching and developing activity to help kids realize how much fun art can really be. So that will be taking place. And then another really amazing opportunity has come our way, ladies and gentlemen. For the last 3 years, just one other thing. In your packet, before I go to that, there is the tentative schedule for what's going on at Dockville. Before these events take place, Shelby will email to you all the update version, because all of this is still tentative. You know, there's this one, it can't, and we gotta, and can we change, and you know that routine. So just to that point, you will have an updated opportunity so that you'll know when your schools will be where, okay? The next piece, which is certainly quite an opportunity in this, for the last 3 years, the New Orleans Symphony Chorus they've approached me about bringing Handel's Messiah to our community. Handel's Messiah is, without question, the most celebrated piece of classic music that exists in the world. It's the Mona Lisa of music, if that makes sense. It's the Mona Lisa of music. And it is a piece that is respected and known throughout the world. The Symphony Chorus has an education mission. They exist both to perform and to educate in the greater New Orleans area. One of their board members is the gentleman, Mr. Tommy Zanka, who gives of his time so profusely to the efforts of what we do at the high school. And they came and talked, and we are going to host one half of the Messiah, ladies and gentlemen. The first half of it will take place at Holy Name of Jesus Church on St. Charles Avenue, and the other half of that they're doing the entire performance. There are 2 performances. One will take place at Holy Name. I realize you all weren't following me. And then the second will be at our cultural arts facility. The Messiah has not occurred here in about 16 years. The last time it happened, JPAS brought it, and we had no participation in it whatsoever. Chalmette High School voices will participate in singing 3 pieces of the Messiah. So we're really excited about that. And Annalise Kassar is the featured soprano soloist in this situation. She auditioned, and here we go. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a little stressful in the Kassar house, can I just tell you? Can I just tell you? So,
Well deserved.
thank you. So whatever we can do to promote this, ladies and gentlemen, it is so important that because the LPO plays, they do the accompaniment for this. So the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra will be accompanying the New Orleans Symphonic Chorus and Chalmette High School. So this is really
big deal.
This is a real big deal.
Right.
This is a real big deal.
It's unbelievable. That's right.
So then, the press release that just came to me yesterday is included. If you can share that, I'm going to send it to Shelby, and that if you all can send this out so that people can know and that we can fill our cultural arts facility with people, it would be great. It would truly be great. And then the last piece on the agenda, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Warner last year brought it up, and I so appreciated that you did, that there were no activities last year for the Battle of New Orleans for our students. There were no activities whatsoever. Well, Katie, Tomasio, Bill Highland, and myself, and Charlene Strain met with the Park Service, essentially said how important and absolutely imperative that our students are connected. And this was the actual email that we received stating that there will be an activity, that our students will have the opportunity to attend. We sent out the email today to principals giving them the heads up that there's a very short window to register online for those positions. So we will be doing that. And in addition, there is a wonderful lady whose name is Jane Caruso. She is the past president of the Daughters of the British Empire, and she is the president of the Delaron Preservation Corporation. And the pile of bricks, one of the most important historic sites in the state of Louisiana, in visual distance from where we are, has been preserved, has been stabilized, and a 14-minute video is being produced. Mr. Barry Lemoyne has helped, and so many people have come together to work on this piece. It will be televised just before the Battle of New Orleans celebration, so that our community can begin to understand how rich our history, how incredibly important that piece of property is. And the plan is that we're going to take that to our schools with an enrichment process so that the kids get to see it, but with live adults to speak about the importance of that. So those projects are on the way. There will be one that will cover the Delaron, one that will cover Chalmette the man. Who in the world? Chalmette, who was that? What did he do? Why is our community? Why is the high school named in honor of him? And some other pieces. There are 5 major pieces that are planned as we go into the new year. So, ladies and gentlemen, Cultural Arts 2018.
Well, Mr. Casal, you're doing a fine job, sir. And,
Many people.
You're busy. You're a busy man.
Many people.
Why they duplicate that? The art, music, dance, theater, teachers, and staff and administration all coming together to work together to make fun things, amazing things happen.
So it's going to be next 6 weeks. It's going to be exciting.
Yes.
Very much so.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it, and I think every board member here is going to be looking forward to it. And I know all the kids are, because Christmas is a special time.
It
Good.
truly
The
is.
holidays. Good. Ms. Dysart, do you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Kassar. You are amazing. And the Kassar family. The fact that, that just coordinating all these programs, and to all the teachers and the sponsors for the dance team and the music, and for all of the cultural arts activities, I want to give a sincere thanks, because it does take a lot of extra time, on their from them and their families. And just this past weekend, I know the Veterans Day parade, we had many of our auxiliary groups march, and it made me so proud to see all of our students with their flags and realizing how important Veterans Day is. But with all the activities with Christmas, I know it's a major organization skill, and so we thank you. We thank all the sponsors too. And the fact that you were negotiated the Messiah to come to St. Bernard Parish and Chalmette High School is amazing. So thank you for continuing to enrich our students with the opportunities, but also to help them each grow self-esteem and participating in all these groups. I just think it's wonderful, and we thank you and all of the teachers who participate in each and every one of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Dysart.
Thank you, Ms. Dysart. Mr. Warner?
Thank you, Mr. England. The Christmas cultural art update took longer than the audit. I mean, I don't know how you do it. I mean, there's 20 different events from now until Christmas. I
Right.
went through and counted them. The guy from The Voice is going to be busy putting this schedule together in the paper coming up. I mean, I know why Alex Schneider's not here. She's putting this all in a calendar, right? I mean, goodness gracious, this is amazing. It's unbelievable how much stuff, how many activities we actually have. And if you go back 10 years, I know you can go back 10 years in your mind real quick. How many you had in 2008? Not a whole lot. Come a long way in the past.
Many
past
good
10.
people trying to do good things for kids.
Yeah.
Truly.
And it all is educational too. It all goes back and it
Well,
stems back and it goes back.
You know, just to repeat it again, because we can't say it often enough, it is so important for young children to start the process, that they gain confidence, that they gain joy and excitement, to discover their gifts and their talents and to be able to move forward with them. Because as they do, when kids know where they're going, they don't go the wrong way.
Mhm.
So it's all connected. It's truly all connected.
It is. And just, you know, I hope we can get some video of this, that we have it out there and, you know, in an archive somewhere on our internet. With, you know, I don't know what, I know it's hard. I know there's a lot of different events, but if we could get
We have
that.
to get Mr. Lemoyne and Mr. Jackson some skates, and we've got to get them at all these events to make sure they're covering them, you know, video-wise.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover. Thank you, Mr. Casal.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Mr. Gaines?
Just want to mention that last week, Friday, I was in attendance of a wonderful play at CHS Live, Murdered to Death. There was a good comedy, and again, like you said, it's a culmination of those children being connected early and just to present. And you had some new talent there that night. Some ninth graders, as a matter of fact.
Yes,
so
they keep coming.
So I was impressed, especially with the set, Mr. Kassar, because I know you had a big hand in creating that set. It was wonderful. It provided that atmosphere you need in the farce by Christy Acton. I'm a big fan of Christy. So, at any rate, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Ms. Gaines. Mr. Kassar, I still would like to thank the Mural Foundation also, because of putting this building together where you don't have the problems that they had in the past. And they are a major supporter of our school system,
Yes,
and we
they
thank
are.
them for that.
Especially our arts, yes, indeed.
Ms. Lemoyne?
And speaking of filming and arts and tying it all together, we also want to thank all of the video and tech students who are working behind the scenes for all these events. So for every time that there's a concert that's held at Chalmette High, we've got that tech crew of students behind the scenes working on that angle of capturing, so that, like Ms. Voce said, we can make sure that everything is filmed and we've got the microphones and the lights working right. And anytime with tech, when tech is working well, no one notices. But when it's bad, you notice when a microphone is going off. So it's wonderful that we're training our students to work both behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. So we thank all those tech crews for being a part of it.
And Mr. Fred Hebert, who does a phenomenal job.
Absolutely.
The other elf.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
In fact, Mr. Hebert, you know, his student body, he's got his own classrooms now. And, you know, it's growing so fast, so which is great. So, yes, Ms. Tyson.
Just one more thing. I know you mentioned about Chalmette High School, the band, and also the Chalmers who they got a superior, right?
Yes.
That is just nothing to just say, oh, they got a superior. I mean, to get a superior at LMEA is very difficult. So I want to congratulate them, and it's something for Chalmette High School to be very, very proud of, and all the hard work that they did, and to Miss Jill Foss, and also to Mr. Rusk, you know, awesome, and the students who I know had to practice many times to be superior.
Beyond sanity, it takes that much practice. It is just,
And
Mr.
it's a
Rusk has
superior
been
in every category, because they're graded separately, the band, the drum major, the drum line, the auxiliary groups and
There's five different
I
areas.
can't get a
Yeah.
fifth one. But whatever it is, all five
Yeah.
groups.
Awesome job. Kudos to them. And just one final thing I'd like to say, thank you to the parish government for having Christmas at the complex. That has been a very wonderful addition to Christmas activities in the parish, but also for the quality of life for those of us who live in the parish, and for the children also to perform and to show all of their wonderful talents. So thanks to the parish government also.
And we want to thank the parents.
And the parents.
Because they let their children to get or learn the experience to go to these events. And so this is the culture that's building. So thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Casal.
Thank you.
Okay, next item's educational item, Ms. Lemoyne.
Thank you. Agenda item number 7 is the Head Start Annual Report and Updates, and we have Dr. Raviota here to present.
Good evening. Thanks for allowing me to come before you and speak. It is a little weird for me to be in the middle of the agenda with a topic of Head Start. Barry told me to say that.
Where's that little boy from Arabic?
No, I appreciate you all coming. This is a yearly event that we have to do to update you on Head Start and our operations. You'll recall that Ms. Lemoyne is our current representative from the board on our policy council, and so the information that I'm giving you tonight I gave at our policy council meeting on Friday, last Friday. The first thing that we have is the annual report. If you look at handout 7A, each Head Start agency shall make available to you and the public a report published at least once in each fiscal year that discloses the following information from the most recently concluded fiscal year. And so what you have in front of you there is 5 categories. Section A gives the breakdown of the funds that we expended last year, the in-kind contribution that the district contributed. In Section B, we have the explanation of the various budget categories. Section C talks about the number of children and families served. Remember, we're funded for 112. The 120 and 118 families, those are kids that come in and out, so we're giving you the total number that we service during the year. Section D talks about our most recent review by the Head Start agency, and you know last year we had our monitoring, and we were in full compliance with no corrective action. Also, one of the things that we're required to do is to present the Head Start audit, the financial audit, and Mr. Fernandez presented that to you earlier tonight. Our Head Start program is part of the district's audit, and so again, we're part of that audit. In Section E, you'll see the percentage of enrolled children that receive medical and dental exams, and kind of a follow-up. You'll remember that, and I'll mention it a little bit later, but we provide you with that medical and dental report on a monthly basis, and you kind of see the kids that are everyone goes through screening, and then we do referrals and follow-ups on those children. Section F just has a kind of highlights the various parent involvement activities that we have during the year, and many of you attend those activities. We have parent orientation, home visits, conference with teachers and paraprofessionals. We have an open door policy. We have parent information workshops where we're doing trainings on discipline, stages of child development, and the like. We have a number of activities that we have that involve families: reading around the world days, field trips, family math and literacy nights, book fairs, fall fests, grandparents' day, and I know many of you do attend those, and we appreciate that. And then the last thing is just our efforts to prepare children. The whole goal of our pre-K program is to get kids ready for kindergarten, and we're real pleased with how we do that, to have them progress in a developmentally appropriate fashion in pre-K so that they can hit kindergarten ready to go. So that's the annual report. I think we do need action to receive the annual report. So if you would do that.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we receive the annual report.
Okay, we've got a motion by Mr. Warner, seconded by Ms. Acevedo. Any questions, comments? Okay, if not, please cast your vote.
Motion passes 10-0.
Okay, thank you. The next couple of reports or additional reports that we're required to give you, if you look at the handout 7B, each year we're required by the by Head Start to provide a program information report. And what it does is it goes into a very detailed look at our program. I'm not going to go through every section, but I just wanted to point out the sections that are listed in there. The program information section, which talks about enrollment, the types of eligibility, race and ethnicity of our students in Head Start, the transportation services. Part B talks about program staff and their qualifications, the credentials and the positions that we have. Section C talks about child and family services, the health and medical that we kind of summarized in our annual report. Disability services that we provide, family and community partnerships. So that's the program information report. Again, you can kind of peruse that report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions about that. Okay, the next report is 7C. And in 7C, what we're doing in 7C is giving you a look at how our children are progressing in our Head Start program. The first report, if you'll notice at the top, it says Summary Narrative of Spring Data for Teaching Strategies Goal. So in all of our pre-K classrooms, we're assessing kids. You know, you can't give a paper and pencil test to a 4-year-old. So we're assessing kids throughout the course of the year. The teachers and paras are looking at the kids. Are they mastering certain skills? They're doing one-on-one conversations with them to see if they're mastering certain skills. So they're observing those things. And the TS Gold assessment that we use allows us to do that. And so we're measuring where our kids coming in at the beginning of the year. We're going to do 3 benchmark assessments on that child. One in the first month, September time frame, then we'll do another one in the January time frame, and then we'll come back with the last one in April, May time frame. So what you're seeing there, there are 38 objectives in the various categories that you see there: social, emotional, math, cognitive, language, literacy, and physical development. And so each child comes in with a baseline, and then they're making progress throughout the course of the year. Our goal is to have 80% of our students reach mastery by the spring assessment. And so that's what we shoot for. As we look at this data, this is the year-long summary from last year's cohort of kids. And so you can see from the fall to the spring that we've had a big increase in how our kids performed. We break it down into it's broken down by race, by gender. I think every year I tell you that the guys really have to improve because we're just always behind. So a lot of growth in place for them. Of course, we focus on math and language because we're in the school business. And so as the year goes on, and this is kind of a point, you know, you all have supported preschool education over the course of, well, in many, many years since the 80s. The board has supported preschool education, and one of the values is that we're able to do some of those developmentally appropriate things with 4-year-olds. They're able to get accustomed to being in a school setting, to be around other kids. And if we don't have that program, then kids are entering kindergarten and they're having to do those things. So we really do give them a head start, and it's really through your support of the program, because it is a costly proposition. The next chart is our baseline for this year. And you know, we kind of track it. We look at how our kids are performing, and we kind of look at it. And this cohort's a little bit, came in with a little more deficits than last year's cohort. And again, we'll be addressing those things as we go through the course of the year. I wanted to point out in social emotional, it says 100% below expectations. Well, that's not truly 100% of every, you know, not every kid came in they give you a range of how many kids are in that range of below expectations. And if there are only 5 or 6 or 7 kids or 10 kids, then it's 0%. You don't get any credit for it. So that's why it registers that. But it is a little bit of a drop-off. And of course, we're cognizant of that. We meet with our teachers. We have PLCs, professional learning communities, with our preschool people once a month. And those are the kinds of things that we're addressing. We look at we look at data just like K to 12, and we analyze areas that we need to improve from a teacher basis and also from a student basis. So that's the kind of the summary of those school readiness topics that we need to address. If you take a look at handout 7D, this is just something for your information. I give this to you every year, and it's in almost the exact same form. We just changed some of the things. I noticed we're in our 28th year of serving of Head Start in the school system. Now, we've been a little longer with preschool, but this is our 28th year in Head Start. During the year, and this is where each month in your in the mail-outs, you're getting the monthly financial report, you're getting the monthly enrollment report, the monthly medical and dental report, and then also the monthly menus. And so that's another requirement that Head Start asks us to do, is to provide the governing body for you all what those reports. So we give those to you. In addition, you really have the legal and fiscal responsibility to guide and oversee the program. And those are just some things there that we've talked about over the course of the years. Ms. Lemoyne is going to be ending her term on our policy council, so with the new board in January, we'll be getting a new member from the policy council, a new representative. On that next page, I'd like to just point out and recognize our new slate of officers for the policy council. Our president is Ms. Christina Doty. The vice president is Ms. Raina Walker, and the secretary is Ms. Classy Terrell. So we're pleased to have them. They stepped up, and we're so thankful for our parent involvement at our pre-K level. Wish we could keep that parent involvement going all the way through 12th grade, but you know that doesn't tend to happen. Handout 7E, it just lists our goals and updates. Again, one of the requirements is to present our goals and objectives for the program to you every year. And so this original set of goals was set in 2016-17 and lasts for 5 years. And so what we do is we take a look at the goals, we update them by, and you can see how we've updated those, kind of addressing, looking at it, what areas do we need to grow and change. And so we're tweaking those things as we go through the course of the year. The goals have all stayed the same. They're on the same topics that we've talked about: medical and dental, numeracy and literacy skills, strengthening our instruction for our teachers, increasing parent participation, improving our class performance in evaluations of our teachers. So those are things that we've done, and those are the things that we focus on. And then the last handout, 7F, is the handout. This is just to notify you. One of the regulations for Head Start is that, we provide transportation. In Head Start programs, you're required to have seat belts on every bus and a bus rider. We're able to ask for a waiver because, in our case, we're not a standalone Head Start agency. So we don't have a bus that just does Head Start students. And so the federal government realizes that the school district is doing that in-kind contribution and allowing transportation to all our students. And so we might have 2 Head Start students on one bus and 3 Head Start students on another bus, none on some of the other buses. So we request a waiver of that, and this is just a letter confirming that we received the waiver. So those are the handouts and the updates. I'd be happy to answer any questions. In closing, I would like to thank Ms. Skellinger, Chantel Skellinger, our program coordinator. She's been fabulous over the course of this year, taking over from Ms. Desitel, and has done a great job, as has our entire pre-K staff, the management team, teachers and the paraprofessionals for their efforts in supporting our children and their families. And again, I'd like to thank you all for being a constant support for preschool education. You know, all across the nation, that's all you hear about is the necessity for having preschool education, but it is a costly proposition, and we appreciate that you've made that a priority. So with that, any questions or any comments, I'd be happy to entertain.
Thank you so much for this very comprehensive report. And more importantly, thank you so much for this very comprehensive effort to address the needs of our youngest students who are part of the Head Start program. As you mentioned, it takes such a coordinated effort between the families, the teachers, all of the support personnel to really address all of those domains of early childhood development. And as you said, when you look at the assessment results from Teach Strategies Gold, you can see how much progress the students make over the course of the year through all those benchmark assessments. So you all do a fantastic job. Thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Gaines?
You know, as a teacher, I appreciate every year when we look at our students coming into the classroom, we look at the crop. That's what I call, you know, what kind of crop we're getting in, and hopefully we can improve on that crop. You got a fantastic crop going through this year. Looking at the report, I'm impressed just with Smith and several other schools. Of course, I mentioned Smith because it's my district, and Smith just recently was recognized as one of the high-growth schools in the state of Louisiana. So it starts at the beginning here,
yes.
And you know, very impressive, Dr.
Thank you.
Very impressive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. Anyone else have a question or a comment? Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Dr. Raff, for all you do. My question, I know we're talking about Head Start, but how many total students do we have in a 4-year-old program?
At the last count, we had about 400 and I want to say it was 86.
Mm-hmm.
So 112. We have about 500 at every grade level, just about.
Right.
Is what you're looking at. So those numbers are about, they stayed steady over the course of the year. So we have 26 classrooms of Head Start spread on every elementary school campus.
And all of our students are doing the Teach Strategies Gold?
Oh yeah, we do that for
Mm-hmm.
everyone.
Gotcha.
You know, we do the same assessments for all. Head Start requires that we, you know, present those,
understand.
but we do that. We track all of our students, and so we're getting a look at all of the classrooms too. It's not like, oh, this class is different than that.
We're so fortunate to have you and to have this Head Start program in our district. And thank you for everything that you do, Dr.
Sure,
Raff.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Any other questions or comments? Do we need a motion to accept the
I
report?
think we had the annual report was the main thing that's necessary.
Okay.
So, is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it's been a pleasure to
Thank
serve
you.
on the Head Start Policy
Thank you.
Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raviota. Okay, item number 8 is a report on statewide assessment results, and we have Ms. Lametta with us. Thank you.
Good evening. It's my pleasure tonight to present to you the Fall 2018 Accountability Scores, along with some award designations, as Mr. Gaines mentioned earlier, earned by some of our schools. And as you remember, the state instituted a new scoring system this school year for our schools and for the district. So for this fall only, in order to help schools and districts make an apples-to-apples comparison, the state did release results on how schools scored using the old scoring system and the new scoring system. And for an example of this, you can look at the handout in your folder. In the handout, you'll see at the top of the handout, you'll see our district performance score in 2017 with the old scoring formula was 98.3. Next to that, you'll see if the state had kept the old scoring formula in place, our district performance score would have been a 99.4. And to the right of that, you can see with the new scoring system, we still earned a B as our district. Now below the district score, you can see the list of the school scores and the letter grades they earned in 2017 with the green column is the score they earned in 2017 with the old scoring system. To the right of that, you can see the letter grade they would have earned in 2018 if the old scoring system had remained in place. And then to the far right, you see the letter grade of each school with the new scoring system in place. Now, as you all know, the Department of Ed did add a component to school performance scores this year, to indicate the progress of students at the school. So each school did earn a letter grade for student progress. And all of our schools earned an A or a B in student progress, and CF Raleigh Alternative School earned a C for student progress with the students at Raleigh. Additionally, as Mr. Gaines mentioned, some schools with highest gains were designated as top gain schools. We did have 4 schools designated as top gain schools. Araby Elementary School, Joseph Davies Elementary School, J.F. Goche Elementary School, and W. Smith Elementary School did earn top gains designations. Now, in addition, the Department of Ed gave a school performance score for each subgroup in each school. And then they ranked those highest to lowest and gave each subgroup a percentile ranking. So given this, they awarded something named an Equity Honoree Award for schools where their subgroups, students in their subgroups, scored in the top 10% in the state. So at Joseph Davies Elementary, students in the Students with Disability subgroup performed in the top 10%. They scored at the 96th percentile in Joseph Davies Students with Disabilities. Now, Chalmette High School was recognized for students in several of their subgroups scoring in the top 10%. Students in the English Language Learner subgroup at Chalmette High School scored in the 90th percentile. Students in the Hispanic subgroup scored at the 91st percentile. Students in the Students with Disability subgroup scored at the 92nd percentile. And students in the Economically Disadvantaged subgroup scored at the 95th percentile. And finally, students included in the Black subgroup scored at the 96th percentile. And of course, as we always say, these results are due to the tireless work put in by our teachers, administrators, parents, and students.
Thank you so much for that overview. What fantastic scores, great accomplishments by our students and teachers. Like you said, this is a testament to the hard work of everyone in our district. So thank you so much for that. Any questions or comments from Ms. Lametta?
Can I just make a comment before we go on? And we look at Raleigh Alternative School, and we know that the accountability system applied to alternative schools is sorely lacking. And we have been trying to get that changed for at least the last 15 to 20 years because of how the indicators do not reflect what the work of the school is supposed to do. So I'm really happy to report tonight that beginning next year, the accountability formula for alternative schools has been changed. And so we should see results next year for Raleigh Alternative School. I think they're going to fare much better on indicators that are much more germane to what they actually do at that particular school in terms of getting the kids back on track, to get the credit situation worked out, the behavioral supports in place, and the progress of the students. So I think that we're going to see, and we're one of the few school systems that kept a separate alternative school, even though the letter grade does not look that great with it. Many of the school systems, while they operate an alternative school, call it an alternative program and just send their scores back to the sending school. To me, that did not shed a light on what we should be looking at in alternative programs. We should be looking at best practices that work and what needs to be replicated. So we've been working very, very hard to get that metric or that rubric changed. So I think we're going to see major improvement in the accountability for Raleigh Alternative School this coming year. So we're excited about that. They're one of the, believe it or not, highest performing alternative schools in the state. Okay, if you want to look at it that way. Even under this old system, we're one of the highest performing alternative schools in the state of Louisiana, and I think we'll be seeing that more when we look at the new rubric that's coming out.
Thank you, Ms. Voce. Any other questions or comments from Ms. Lametta?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Dr. Lametta. Look at this new grading system with all the different aspects of it. It's like they're moving the goalpost on a very foggy day. And you're clearing it up for me, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And just to point out, our kids have improved over last year. But as Mr. Warner was pointing out, with the new grading system, and we've said this before, to put it in a football analogy, well, last year a touchdown was worth 6 points. Well, now it's worth 3 or 4. So while the performance was the same, the credit that you're given for that same performance has gone down tremendously, which causes schools, the school performance scores around the state to go down. So many districts are experiencing that. Districts that were maybe A and B districts are now B and C districts. We're very fortunate. We've got a tremendously good school system, great teachers, and a good program in effect. And we are, rated as a B school district under the new, more rigorous formula.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Lametta? Again, thank you so much for this presentation, and again, thank all of our teachers and administrators for working so hard. I know Ms. Kurth is in the audience tonight when we talk about the accomplishment of those subgroups, especially looking at students with disabilities. Thank you for your leadership over that special education department and working so hard in that effort. And I just want to commend Ms. Voce and Ms. Lametta and the administration when you're talking about how those decisions for accountability impact the decision-making about what to do in that alternative setting. I truly believe we've done what's best for students, even if it meant that it would negatively impact that accountability score. So I'm happy to hear that that formula will be changing. So thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
All right, agenda item number 9 is personnel changes for November.
Included in your packet or a few of the changes that we have since the last board meeting. We're pretty stable at this particular point. We do have occasionally people, obviously, as you can see, going out on a medical leave, and then we're having to bring in additional people. So you can see the changes here if there are any questions that you have. What?
No retirees.
No retirees this month.
Thank you, Ms. Fauché. All right. We'll move on to item number 10, executive. Ms. Dysel.
Thank you, Mr. England. Next item is policy JGCF, behavioral health procedures. And we have with us Ms. Kerr tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Dysart.
Who has a PowerPoint presentation to go along with her.
You want the light?
Overachiever, right? Whatever works for you guys, I'm fine with it.
The front light maybe we turn. The back one. There we go. No, the other one. There we go.
All righty. Well, I apologize ahead of time. I am getting over a cold, and so if I have to clear my throat a little bit, I apologize. But members, I wanted to thank you for this opportunity to present to the board tonight a proposed policy for adoption as well as the documents included in the procedures for this implementation. The proposed policy is referred to as Act 696, House Bill 766, which was passed in the 2018 regular legislative session. I'd like to direct your attention to the materials that that are prepared for you with the assistance of Forethought Consulting, which are our policy developers, and Hammond, Sills, Geis, and Atkins, which is an attorney law firm who assisted us with the procedures and additional documents. In that brown accordion folder, you'll find 2 paperclip sets of materials. The first set is a cover sheet and a copy of this prepared PowerPoint. The second set is additional attachments, including the Act 696 legislation piece, the proposed policy for adoption, and additional suggested written documents and procedures for implementation. Tonight, I'll review these key points in the policy as it relates to the law of Act 696. Before we get into policy or the procedure and the PowerPoint, rather, as you all are aware of special education, we have a lot of acronyms. So you may see some things that are maybe new to us or maybe you have knowledge of. But 3 acronyms tonight we're going to look at is BHS, which is the Behavioral Health Services, BHP, which is referred to as Behavioral Health Provider,
and a BHE, which is a behavioral health evaluation. Of course, we have the others that you guys are familiar with, like IEP, 504, health plan, things like that, and those are outlined in there as well. So without further ado, we'll start with this PowerPoint tonight, and let's see if I can get this to work. Yep. I'm pressing. Thank you.
Still doesn't work.
Technology, huh?
Technology.
He said left button. I'm trying. I'm even rolling. So, Jack.
Jack. Why don't you just go on? We've got the
Absolutely, sure.
PowerPoint, and
Right,
he'll
so,
be around. He'll be around in a second.
On the second slide, the second piece of the first page, second slide, behavioral health services for students. Attachment 1, you'll see a copy of the actual act. And that act is Act 696 of the regular session, House Bill 766, and there you'll see the authors of that bill. Moving on to slide 3. This is the recommendation of to the St. Bernard Parish School Board for policy adoption. And this policy is attachment 2 in the additional supplies that are presented to you. This policy captures the requirements outlined in Act 696. As you review the attachment 2, I will point out in this PowerPoint the items of interest and implementation. So if we start with attachment 2, the actual proposed policy, the BHP must have an insurance policy naming the St. Bernard Parish School Board as a certificate holder with a minimum of $1 million in incident and $1 million in aggregate. Thank you. Appreciate it. The BHP must complete a criminal background check conducted by the Louisiana State Police and the BHP's cost for all related expenses. Oh, a little too fast, huh? You did it, okay, we did it together. Right? Can you go back on it? Thank you. One more. Thank you. All right. A public school shall not prohibit a behavioral health provider, a BHP, from providing behavioral health services to a student at school during the school day if the parent requests such services from the provider and the BHP agrees to the conditions which the school board applies to the BHP under school board policies and procedures. It's all outlined for you in additional materials. Next, the requirement of the BHP is to provide behavioral health evaluation that indicates the services are necessary during the school hours to assist a student with impairments that the evaluator determines are interfering with the student's education. Parents must execute a consent to release information form so that the St. Bernard Parish School Board and the BHP can communicate freely. That's also in your packet. It may be provided during instructional time for English, reading, math, and science if the school and the BHP agree it is in the best interest of the student. Public schools cannot enter into a contract that prohibits the parent from choosing the BHP, and all costs associated with the BHS are solely the responsibility of the parent, either individually or via his or her insurance or other source. The BHP shall comply with and abide by the terms of all individualized educational plans, the IEP, a 504 plan, a behavior intervention plan, or an individual health plan as applicable. The BHP must comply with the St. Bernard Parish School Board's requirements regarding the student's progress and regarding student and school safety concerns. The services of the BHP shall be incorporated into a written treatment plan. The St. Bernard Parish School Board may establish sanctions for the BHP's failure to adhere to the board policy, including termination of ability to come on school campus as a BHP. Some additional information in this policy includes the following definitions, which I've provided for you a little bit earlier, and that this policy must be adopted by January 1, 2019. So therefore, we're bringing it to you a couple of months early for you to take a look at. I'd like you to take a quick moment just to reference the additional materials that are in your packet. These documents are necessary to assist with the duties of this implementation. Attachment 3, there's procedures and the way, step by step, the way this act should be carried out and implemented in our schools. Attachment 4 is an application checklist. So that way we have checks and balances. What's here, what do we need, how are we going to get this, and who's going to provide it. Attachment 5 is the parental request, acknowledgement, and consent for services. This is saying the parent is asking for these services, okay? Attachment 6, consent to release records to the BHP. This is for us to be able to release personal identification information or any additional records that they may need to provide their services. Attachment 7 is the BHP application and acknowledgements of providing services. So the parent has an application and the health provider has one. Attachment 8 is an MOU. That's the longest attachment you have. I think it's 12 pages long. But as you know, these MOUs are really important because it lays out the rules and regulations and how it relates to the school system and the provider. And attachment 9 is the final piece in your packet, and this is the principal notification checklist. So this is once that we've accomplished all of 1 through 8, that the 9 is the final piece that I'll say, okay, at this point, this is what's going to happen. And then I meet with the principal, and the principal and I decide on how, this is all going to work. So in a nutshell, it's a lot of information for you to take a look at as we look at adopting this policy. And with any piece of legislation, it's super important that we take a look at these things. And I know you guys agree with this because we've all been down this road. But, some of the things we want to look at are accountability issues, the educational interference. How is it interfering in a child's education? The safety is our #1 priority. Confidentiality, liability, professional decor. Non-solicitation, clear and accurate, respectful, and legal relationships. These are all super important things. But I wanted to really point out to you, as we look at these things and we look at other laws and responsibilities we have as a school system, but the #1 priority is, in the district's interest, is the safety and security of our students, as well as preserving their confidentiality. Okay, so I put in tonight from Act 716, protecting children in the school environment is a governmental interest of the highest order. And that's what I'm going to carry out through this process. Okay? What does that mean? What does that mean when we're going to carry the safety out to for our children in the community as well as our school system? I wanted to give you what that looks like in the visitor policy, okay? Because how do we allow individuals from outside to come onto our campuses and keep safety as our #1 priority? So outlined in Louisiana Revised Statute 17-416-10, every school district is required to adopt and develop and adopt written rules, regulations, and procedures for granting authority to persons to go on public school grounds or in any public school building or other school facilities as a visitor during school days, and for notifying visitors of such rules, regulations, and procedures. That's laid out. A visitor is defined as a person except school system employees, school board members, a student, parents, guardians, or other persons authorized to deliver or pick up a student from school. So therefore, to make it a little clearer, the behavioral health providers are visitors to our school. So we'll need to, go through these checks and balances for that. And the behavioral health services are non-educational services provided on our school campuses during the school day. Okay? So I'd invite you to take a look at this information, review it, and if you have any questions or clarification, I gave you my email address, my phone number. Most of you probably have my cell phone number too. You can reach me on the weekends if you need to. But I just wanted to, thank Ms. Foche and Ms. Lametta for the support they've given me and, putting this together for you tonight, as well as the effort it's going to take to carry this out. This is a very big responsibility, and I'm proud to own it and provide the additional assistance for our students for behavioral health services. Any questions? Sure.
I'm trying to put this in layman's terms because there's a lot of jargon here.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to relay a little quick story here on my campaign route. I came across a parent who has an autistic child, and they were complaining that they couldn't get services into a school because it was an outside service and they were prohibited to bring that outside service into the school to help that autistic child. Would this be covered under that?
Well, so it all depends too. You know, like, first of all, we provide services for our students based on an evaluation in an IEP, okay? So if, under the bulletin, that 1508, 1706, any bulletin that we fall under, if our student qualifies for these specific, I guess, social services or behavioral services, we are mandated by law to provide that. So we do that. Many times parents want to get additional help, okay? Now, the assistance that we help for our related services are educationally, you know, I guess referenced, all right? Sometimes these outside agencies or other outside agencies provide home and community assistance too. So that may be above and beyond what we're doing, or it may just be the same type of services. So the state also embraces what we call wraparound services. So that's kind of like joining together as a group and making the best program for each child. So some students may require more because, you know, we have to have so much instructional time, so much, you know, time for our related services, so much time for them to go to recess. How are the kids, you know, incorporated into the daily plan? And that's really difficult to do, and we only have so much time with them. So some families do consider using that. Now, how is that funded? See, we use some of our resources, and we may bill Medicaid during the school day, and sometimes those outside agencies bill Medicaid during the school day, so we can't double bill at the same time. So that's why it's kind of, you have to be creative on how that happens. So if we're billing during the school day, most of the time parents will, if they qualify for outside agencies, they'll go to something after school and they'll get billed for that. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but if there's ever, you know, concerns or whatever, the IEP team, if they're special ed and they qualify for that, they can take a look at the services and see if we need to tweak, change, adjust, things like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Warner?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Sharon,
You're
for your
welcome.
presentation. Excellent job. I'll make a motion that we adopt the policy. Do we need a motion to adopt the policy? I'll make a motion that we adopt it, but also have another question.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Warner, seconded by Mr. Gaines. Discussion?
Yeah, so this, they could simply check out and go get the services?
You can do that, yes. A parent can check their student out to do that, but, you know, at the same time, they would be missing instruction too. So, you know.
They're gonna miss that anyway, right?
Right, right. And some parents do elect to do that, but we are real careful with that, you know, with the attendance laws and things like that. But to be honest, that doesn't happen that often.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Warner?
No.
I mean, excuse me, Mr. England. Thank you, Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Ms. Dysart. No, my question is this. Some of these outside agencies, will they be in contact with our students and their parents for them to provide, to come into our system?
Well,
where it would cost us?
Right, so the very first thing is the parent has to request these services, okay?
Right.
And the next thing is the agency has to provide me with a copy of an evaluation that says that it's medically necessary for them to come on during the school day onto the school campus to provide a service.
Okay, so it'll be our decision.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And let me just say, you know, one of the slides, and I think it's very important that, and Ms. Kurth mentioned it, requirements for the provider to provide a behavioral health evaluation, usually from a doctor, a medical professional, that indicates the services are necessary during school hours to assist the student with impairments that the evaluator determines are interfering with the student's education.
Okay.
And that would be the basis for allowing some of that to happen on the school campus during the regular day. If it's ancillary services that they would be providing, that it's not interfere, that would be more of, you know, therapy or talking with professionals for the student to do better maybe in the home environment or communicating with people in the community. This is supposed to just be if they feel that it would help the student in furthering his educational progress on campus. And what you're looking at is, and the copy of the law is right here mandating that we develop this policy. And what you're approving is this policy that you've seen, you know, with the little, this one is JGCF that will go in our policy manual. This is what you would be approving tonight, or at the regular meeting in 2 weeks, is approving the policy. What Ms. Kurth has also provided in a very comprehensive manner, because she spent a lot of work on this, and in consultation with Hammonds and Sills, who is our attorney, who handles these types of things, and the development of the policies, the procedures, the checklists, the MOU, has all been developed in consultation with our legal team, so that we know that all of this is being done properly. And these are agreements among the parents, the behavioral health providers, and the school system. And what I think needs to be understood is that, you know, this, if we're pulling children out of instructional time, and that's in violation of their IEP, which says they must have this much instructional time, and this, we've got to make sure that these activities are not interfering with the instructional time. And parents have to understand, and we're making them sign these forms to indicate that you do realize if they're being pulled out of activities, even socialization activities. Like Ms. Kurth mentioned, recess, or maybe more unstructured time, that's real. Some of those activities are in a child's IEP just for those purposes, for socialization, learning to communicate and interact with their fellow students. So it's very difficult. Now, if we allow the providers on campus to provide the activities, we have to be very careful. We have a place that we can allow them to use that's not going to interfere with the instructional process. And some buildings, we will have maybe a nice place we can put them. Others, we're going to have to juggle a little bit to find a place for them, a physical location that they can do this. We also have to make sure that the confidentiality, the personally identifiable information of other students is not compromised in any way. So we've got to balance all of this as we work through the process. That's why we have all these policies, procedures, and legal documents that everyone is going to have to adhere to. So,
no, it's not. Diane's got.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that it, Ms.?
Yes.
Is that it, Ms. Bojo? Okay. Mr. Eakin?
I have one question. Sure. What happens if you, of course, I've not had enough time to read everything.
Absolutely.
But what happens if you got mom and daddy and they're not together anymore? Mama says yes and dad says no. Is there any provisions or anything, or what steps would they have to take? Either
Right.
one.
Right, so we would resort back to the legal guardian, and we'd look at maybe a custody form to see if maybe, you know, mom has custody or who has custodial rights to that, and there are some educational
I'm gonna throw you a
things.
curve on that.
I know,
There's
I
such
know.
a thing as joint custody.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And when
And
you
there's
have
some things
joint
that-
custody, there's normally in the provisions of the judgment, you say certain things such as
Right.
medical treatment.
Mhm.
Medical treatment.
Some
And
have
let's
medical,
just
some
say
have educational.
mama has the child at the time, and medical treatment, sometimes because of that, they have to agree to go see Dr. Joe Blow. That's why I'm wondering if there is a provision,
Right.
because I could see a problem if a child is having problems, and this would benefit him as far as education is concerned.
And we have some of those same issues too with other decisions, you know, educationally. So, of course, if we're not sure, we will refer to our legal counsel and make sure that we follow that to the best of our abilities. But, you know, that may be something that comes up, and we'll take a look at that when that does, you know.
Okay.
But, you know, safety is our number one concern in following this act and in implementing this to the fullest, best of our abilities is my pledge to you tonight. So I will take care of that if it comes across.
Because of course, that's what it's for the kids.
Absolutely, right. We all want them to succeed
Okay.
academically and behaviorally.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Anyone else? I just want to say that overall, it looks as though our students who need additional resources are going to be getting them. And our school system does provide many, many resources, but some students do need additional resources. So I think this act is very, very good, and I know there are some restraints. And I have not been able to read the whole thing either, the policy. But I have a question about the liability. Is that generally the
based in the law.
statewide?
It's
Okay.
based
It
upon
was
the law.
part of the act itself?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
It's on the very
Okay.
first page of the act.
So any agency provider
every.
would have to have that?
Yep.
Okay.
And
All
they
right,
make
good.
us the policy holder, and it's very clear in the act.
Okay, great. And again, I think the St. Bernard Parish School System does a great job of
absolutely.
providing resources. But if there's a resource that, a child needs, then they'll be getting it. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So
Right.
thank you very much.
Just in conclusion, if a child, this is my favorite line, but if, a child can't read, we teach them to read. If a child can't behave, we need to teach them how to behave. And that's, I'm sure the spirit of this act and the spirit of the families who, strive to get what they need for their children. And so, as you all know, and you have all pledged, that's what we're going to do too. So, again, the safety, confidentiality, and success of our students is our number one priority in the district.
That's good.
Thank you, Ms. Kurth, and
You're
I guess we'll
welcome.
be voting on this at the regular meeting.
Yeah, and I'll be back. If you have any
We have to
questions,
vote.
please contact me. I'll be more than happy to assist.
Okay. Well, there's a motion on the floor
with a
at this time, at the committee meeting. There's a motion and a second. So we will need to cast your votes on this policy.
Yeah, to move it to the full board.
Right, recommend to
But
the
to
full
the
board.
board.
Recommend the acceptance of the new policy. Please cast your votes.
Motion passes 10-0.
And thank you, Ms. Kurth.
You're welcome.
For all your hard work on this.
Very good, that's great.
Okay, next item is a finance item, bid tabulation for bids received for spices and seasonings, Class 2, cereal, dried beans and crackers, Class 3, frozen foods, Class 5, meat products, Class 6, poultry and eggs, Class 7, seafood products, Class 8, and canned goods, Class 9, for the period of January 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2019. And we have Ms. Bloom with us tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. This is our 6-month food bid, and we received 4 bids from vendors, tabulated the bids, and we selected the lowest bid as long as they met the specifications that we were asking for.
No exceptions?
Nope, no exceptions.
Okay. The lowest bid on every product. Is there a motion on the floor to accept at this time? There's a motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Ms. Lemoyne. Any discussion? There being none, please cast your votes.
Motion passes 10-0.
Thank you, Ms. Bloom. Sorry you were at the back of the agenda, too.
She's not
Okay.
quite at the back.
That's okay, but you live here.
Yeah. Okay, next item is the revised 2018-2019 general fund and special refund funds budgets.
Okay, thank you. In your package, you have a revised budget, hot off the
Thank
presses. Ms. Benezek is passing out an exhibit that's going to replace exhibit number 1 in your packet. So please take the one that is labeled number 1, the second exhibit in
throw
your
it away.
packet, and just replace it with the one you're being handed. You have, this is the 2018-2019 revised general fund and special revenue fund budgets. It's basically a technical revision. What we did was we went in and we adjusted the budget for the actual ending fund balance in the general fund. And we also added in encumbrances and fund balances at the end of the year for different programs. And we did make some minor adjustments to salaries and benefits for changes in personnel. But basically, that's the extent of this budget revision. It's purely a technical one. There are 4 exhibits. The first exhibit is a summary of the anticipated revenues and expenditures. We're starting off with a budget fund balance of $20,258,777. I'd like to point out, though, that that includes encumbrances at the end of the year of $1.6 million, as well as over $380,000 in fund balances for different programs, which were reappropriated in the new year. So that's why you're going to see a decrease in fund balance, because those monies were taken out of fund balance and put back into the budget. We're estimating revenues of $72,459,401. The main changes in revenues were we incorporated the final MFP allocation for our initial MFP allocation, not our final, for 2018-2019, and we revised some of the grant monies to the actual amounts for this current year. When we did this originally in May, we just had estimates. Expenditures, we're estimating at $75,618,794. Basic change from the original budget is, as we said, we added in those encumbrances and those fund balances into the expenditure balances, and we also adjusted the salary slightly. Everything else is pretty much the same, with the exception of the transfers to other educational agencies, which are the transfers of local revenues to charter schools in the city. That's the actual final amount for 2018-2019. And we're projecting an ending fund balance of $17,201,980. About $10.5 million of that will be undesignated. Exhibit 2 is a detail of the revenues, the original budget versus the revision we're proposing, and the differences. Exhibit 3 is expenditures. Again, the original budget, the revised budget, and the difference. And Exhibit 4 is just our special revenue, our major special revenue funds, which we're just updating it with the actual grant amount. So we just gone in and we changed all the major funds, and these are funds with amounts over $500,000. We changed it to the actual grant amounts for 2018-2019, and we just revised it that way for your information. But basically, like I said, it's a technical revision just to get all those encumbrances and everything budgeted into our current year budget so that it's reflected, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. England?
Yeah, Mr. Fernandez.
Yes, sir.
The transfer to other educational agency, that has gone down, hasn't it?
Actually, it's slightly up, but they'll adjust it at mid-year based on the actual October 1st counts for all of those schools. What they do is they come up with an estimate based on the February 2018 student count at the charter schools. In October, on October 1st, they took another count, and they will see if those actual estimates hold up or not, and they'll make a revision either up or down for those amounts. So that is our current estimate that the Department of Education has.
Yeah, because I thought in the past there was around 250 to 275,000.
It's been higher in the past. Last year, the ending estimate was, the ending amount was like 180,000, so it went up like $10,000
yeah.
in their new estimate based on the February 1st count. So it's something that fluctuates up and down as time goes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Warner?
I'll make a motion that we send a revised 2018-2019 general fund budget to the full committee.
Okay, there's a motion by
I'll
Mr. Warner, seconded by Mr. England. Any further discussion? There being none, please cast your votes.
Motion passes 10-0.
Thank you again, Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
Mr. England?
Thank you, Ms. Dysart. Move on to item number 13, superintendent's recommendation. Ms. Foche.
Well, actually, with Super News and the update on the cultural arts programs and everything, I think we've said just about everything that's going on in our school system at the moment. Just want to remind parents that this Friday will be the last day prior to the Thanksgiving holidays. Our students will not be in school next week, and we will welcome them back on the following Monday after Thanksgiving.
Also in your packet, fellow board members, you get the superintendent's evaluation that's done every year. We'd like to go ahead, if you can have that filled out and given to Ms. Benazak at the next board meeting, we really appreciate it. We'll probably have a special meeting prior to do the evaluation on the superintendent.
Right, prior to the committee meeting.
Right,
I did
right,
mention that.
right, in December. In December.
In December, right.
Right, that's correct. I just need the reports in by next meeting.
Okay.
Mr. England, can I
Yes.
make a comment? I just want to congratulate the Shaman Owl football team on a successful season, making the state playoffs, even though they got robbed in Terrebonne by the officials. But they had a great season. And I want to just congratulate the coaches and the players and the parents and the fans and the all the groups, the performing groups were amazing this year, absolutely amazing. We did the junior cheerleaders and the junior charmers, and all that went over well. It was just a very friendly, family-oriented night. So if you ever have a chance to go to a game on a Friday night, it is just a fabulous family event. So I just want to congratulate the administration and Shaman High School and football team on a very successful season. Thank you.
Very good, Mr. Warner. Anybody, any other board members, anything? Okay. The only thing I can say is have a happy Thanksgiving. So we'll move on to the next item, to adjournment. We have a motion by Ms. Estefeta, second by Mr. Campbell. All in favor? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you and good night. Happy Thanksgiving.